my admiration for the people who work here and the people whose children attend the school district. We also talked a little bit about the demographics and my take on what I thought might happen in the school district over the next few years, and talked about growth over the last 10 years. About 2,500 students had come into the system, but over the last 3 years, that population had stabilized and it's virtually flat. And what my expectations might be over the next few years. Making a comment that the Lexington 5 school district is a classic suburban district built on low gas prices, people willing to commute, stable home environment where houses could be built and mortgages received. And in the last few weeks, and certainly the last few days, that whole world has been turned topsy-turvy. Tonight, I want to talk about something that may be a little more painful in discussion and a little more difficult to talk about. During the last few years, I think the district and a citizens committee has done a good job of trying to explain the consequences of if a referendum is approved, these actions will follow. In other words, if you vote yes, this is what happens. What I observed from my reading of materials is it probably not a very good job, or at least the same quality of job, of laying out what no meant. That if you vote no on the proposal, here are the eventual consequences of that decision. And the public has to look at it, evaluate what they think, and then make a decision on where they believe the district ought to go, or what the case if the case has been made. And what I want to do tonight is start a discussion about what I think no means. Let me go back into three parts: a past, a few comments about the present, and then what I would see in the future. First of all, go back just 4 years ago. In the school year 2004 and 2005, a citizens committee gathered information about school facilities, studied the needs, and brought a proposal to the school board that was put forward in a bond issue. In the 2005 and 2006 school year, there was a leadership change, and Tech Dowling was the interim superintendent of schools. He worked on and led a campaign to pass a bond issue, and that referendum failed, receiving only 34% yes. But there's nothing that was explained that would happen if a no happened. In 2007 and 2008, Scott Anderson was the superintendent, and he led the campaign to build community support for a revised plan, which was recommended by 2 citizens committees and supported unanimously by the school board. In November 2007, that referendum failed with 44% voting yes. And again, no explanation of what happens if no would occur. Now, what happened was portables were brought in across the system, where you have 149 of them today, but there was nothing in advance of that vote that explained to people the consequences of no, 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 and what the district would have to do at some point. And here we are in 2008, and I'm working to build community information on this referendum that will occur in a few weeks now on November 4th. If this referendum passes in November, the building projects as outlined will proceed. There are 10 of them or so, and on the timeline prescribed, a yes vote gets these 10 projects. But what happens if there is a no and another loss, the third loss in 3 Novembers? What are the consequences of that decision? Well, a short sidestep here. In the spring of 2009, the school board is going to be looking for a permanent replacement superintendent. If the bond issue should pass, the board will be looking for a superintendent or a school executive who had built buildings somewhere along in their career and would know how to manage a $240 million capital project activity. If the bond issue fails, the school board will still be looking for a permanent superintendent, but the skill set that you all will be looking for will be very, very different. This time, rather than looking for a superintendent who has built buildings, you're going to have to try to find someone who has lived with a crisis in in their facilities for the next 5 or 6 or perhaps even 7 years. And the skills of the superintendent selection in the spring of 2009 would be totally different based on a yes vote and a no vote. I think if you fail this levy 3 times, there's a bond referendum 3 times in a row, and hire a superintendent in the spring of 2009, that new superintendent will come in July, look at the situation, and decide that next school year is not the time to be running a bond issue. It's been tried 3 times in various configurations, has not passed. The workers who have worked on the campaign, the contributors who have contributed to the campaign activities will be exhausted, and there will be no vote in November of 2009. In my sense, there will be not a vote in 2010. A good superintendent will look at the situation and decide that he or she will need a couple of years to look at this thing. So the earliest time that a 4th referendum can be put before the voters of this school district would be in November 2011. During that period of time, the condition of the buildings and the fluctuations of students will occur, but it's still a very long time, and managing the system under those conditions is very, very difficult. If it fails again, the situation at the high schools, which I think are gigantic and oversized today, will only get worse. The crowding at Chapin Elementary School, Ballantyne Elementary School, and Lake Murray Elementary School will continue to grow and get worse. And in the Irmo cluster, the stabilized and maybe even decreasing population will continue to occur, not 3 years, but 4, 5, 6, and 7 before another opportunity will present itself on a bond issue. In my view, if the bond issue fails in November, you have to do something, because you're looking at 5, 6, or 7 years with no referendum. And let me throw out to you what I think are 3 options that I would be recommending to you.